It's often said that Warner Brothers can do better with DC Comics and their storylines. The studios have accounted for numerous cancellations, often depriving its fans of good continuity. We've witnessed MCU successfully establish a conclusive story stretching throughout the decade. Although there have been changes in casts for even essential characters, it's not broken the continuity. However, DC, on the other hand, is working on another reboot after putting an end to the Snyderverse. These abrupt changes have often led to the audience losing interest in characters and changing the course of ongoing storylines. Hi everyone, and welcome to another marvelous video. Today we'll be exploring every cancelled DC movie till date. It's going to be a very long list, and we advise you to watch the video until the end. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Justice League Part 2. Following 2016's Batman vs. Superman and 2017's Justice League, everyone was expecting a sequel with the newly formed team of superheroes. In fact, it was announced that Zack Snyder would be directing a two-part Justice League film, but the studio faced a lot of turmoil before finally deciding to wind up the story in one film. The problems began with the studio while shooting the first Justice League movie. Zack Snyder, who had already set up his verse with the previous movies, had to back out midway owing to a tragedy in his family. There were several rewrites and reshoots, after which the final product could have been concluded better. However, upon the release of Snyder's Cut on March 18, 2021, fans had their hopes built momentarily as the post-credit scenes were enough to tease us with an aftermath of the soon-arriving Darkseid and his forces. There was a buzz regarding Snyder completing his story, but it all ended after Warner Brothers made their final announcement in July 2022, stating there wouldn't be a continuation to the Snyderverse. So, that's how the idea of Justice League 2 got scrapped, and DC laid their focus on multi-dimensional DC characters. Batgirl. The production of Batgirl began in March 2017 with Joss Whedon, and it was confirmed to be released as an HBO Max original. The development of the film began in 2017 with Joss Whedon, but later, when he left after a year, Hodson was hired to complete the script while El Arbi and Fowler were brought in to direct it. With Leslie Grace playing Barbara Gordon, aka Batgirl, and Michael Keaton as Bruce Wayne, the film was shot in Glasgow, Scotland, and all shots were completed by March 2022. Unfortunately, the $90 million movie never got its release after HBO Max merged with Warner Brothers Discovery. Sometime in August 2022, Warner Brothers Discovery announced that owing to the company's cost-cutting measures, the movie couldn't be moved forward with. The movie would have been an installment in the DC Extended Universe, and fans eagerly waited for Batman to appear as a mentor to Batgirl. Superman 5. Christopher Reeve's Superman was the benchmark for the character's live-action depiction. The first two Superman movies in the series were global blockbusters. Directed by Richard Donner, his imagination, aided by special effects, drove audiences crazy and made them believe Superman could fly. The movies pioneered the concept of modern superhero movies and were a huge success. However, things got a bit shaky after Superman 3 turned out to be a disappointment. Despite its novelistic idea, the movie grossed far lesser than the previous films and also received mixed views from audiences. Finally, the rights to Superman movies were sold to Menahem Golan and Yoram Globus of Cannon Films. Cannon Films produced the fourth movie titled Superman 4, Quest for Peace, with a minimal budget which made the movie a complete flop. Superman 4 eventually turned out to be an embarrassment, following which all ideas of making Superman 5 were scrapped entirely. However, there were more reasons behind the movie's cancellation. Firstly, the screenplay was never written, and secondly, Christopher Reeve and the rest of the cast refused to work in another Superman film. The reason behind Cannon Films cutting down the budget was legit. They were then working on several projects and under severe crisis after facing several failures. The company finally went out of business in 1994. Wonder Woman 3. Gal Gadot's entry as Wonder Woman did bring some strong positive hopes amongst DC fans. With a short cameo in Batman vs. Superman, Gal Gadot received great reviews, which led to her solo Wonder Woman movie in 2017. After Wonder Woman 1984, Gal Gadot even tweeted that she couldn't wait any longer to share with us her next chapter as Wonder Woman. But little did she know that the movie's make was kept on hold. According to sources, Warner Brothers Discovery was under a debt of more than $50 million with Zaslav, while Wonder Woman director Patty Jenkins and Gal Gadot quoted an amount of $12 million and $20 million, respectively. Furthermore, there were no chances of continuing with the Snyderverse, which led to the question of the relevance of another Wonder Woman movie. Things became a bit rough following the cancellation. According to a report from The Wrap, the producers called Jenkins to negotiate, but she declined. This created quite a bit of a stir on the internet as Wonder Woman was doing well in the movies. Following this up, Jenkins tweeted that she never walked away and there were means in her capabilities to move with the projects. However, she blamed the studio for slimming down their production after merging with Discovery. The unrest settled, but we still didn't get to see the third Wonder Woman movie. Man of Steel 2. Amongst all sequels in the DC cinematic universe, the one for the live-action movie Man of Steel was the most awaited one. Following Man of Steel's success in 2013, its sequel was first announced to be released as a part of the DC Extended Universe in 2014. Since then, several directors wanted to make the movie, but none finalized the deal, for which the project was delayed. However, after Henry Cavill's cameo in the post-credit scene of Black Adam in 2022 and his tweet stating he was back as Superman, everyone believed the sequel to be happening. Cavill didn't make empty promises, as then Warner Brothers was indeed looking forward to making the sequel. They desired to have one more round with the Snyderverse and its actors and spent a significant amount of time meeting writers to execute the story. Unfortunately, after hiring James Gunn and Peter Safran to lead the DC studio, the movie met its end as they look forward to rebooting the entire universe. They're at present working on a completely rebooted Superman film, which will be titled Superman Legacy. Justice League Mortal. We got our first Justice League movie in 2017, but surprisingly, the first Justice League film was supposed to get its release in the summer of 2009. George Miller, who had previously directed movies like Mad Max and Happy Feet, was supposed to direct the movie. With DJ Catrona for Superman, Armie Hammer as Batman, and Megan Gale for Wonder Woman, the project was ready to receive its green signal in 2008. Meanwhile, superhero movies based on the X-Men and Fantastic Four were already released, showcasing the ambitious take on having several canonical characters on the big screen. Finally, DC finalized the project for their movie titled Justice League Mortal. Initially, the studio had a few issues with the script, but any significant rewrites were not possible then, as it was during the 2007-2008 Writers Guild strike. Later, it was stated that the filming was supposed to begin mid-2008, but then the production was delayed as Warner Brothers didn't yet receive the expected tax rebates from the Australian government. After waiting a significant amount of time, Warner Brothers changed the movie's location to Canada. Meanwhile, The Dark Knight brought great success to the studio, following which they decided to move forward with solo superhero projects. Finally, the plan of making the movie was removed from the roster. David S. Goyer's The Flash. Plans for making a solo movie on Flash had begun as early as the 1980s. After David S. Goyer's work on Christopher Nolan's Batman Begins, he was approached by the studio to continue his work with them. He picked up Flash, stating that it was his favorite character and that there were a lot of opportunities to conceptualize the powers of Flash in the movie. From just writing the script, he was asked to direct and produce the film. And as reported by sources, the film production was planned to begin in 2004. David had completed writing the script in 2006, but shockingly in 2007, he announced that he'd left the project. It was unclear as to what led to the film's cancellation, until he mentioned the reason to be differences in creative ideas between him and the Warner Brothers. According to David's story, the film would have showcased both Barry Allen and Wally West, with the former dying at the movie's beginning. Warner Brothers withdrew their interest from the plot and planned to shift their focus to George Miller's Justice League Mortal, which again was cancelled. JLA Avengers film. Back in 1979, both DC and Marvel agreed on making a crossover story involving the characters from both universes to participate in a joint venture. Unfortunately, it faced too many issues before being cancelled. However, later the companies came into an agreement in 2002 with Kurt Busiek writing the story for the crossover event. The series was printed in 2004 as a 2-volume collector's edition hardcover, following which it was released as a trade paperback in November 2008. Bruce Timm, who was then one of the prime creators and producers of the animated film showcasing several DC superheroes, showed his interest in making a JLA Avengers animated film in 2009. However, since then, there have been no words or action in its motion, and we can only assume that the complex conditions between the two companies led to its cancellation. Ben Affleck's Batman solo movie. Although DC rebooted Batman with Robert Pattinson, there was supposed to be one more Batman movie with Ben Affleck. Directed by Affleck himself, the movie would have showcased Deathstroke, played by Joe Manganiello, as the primary villain, and would also have given light to the history of Joker and Robin from Affleck's timeline. According to sources, Ben Affleck had been working on the script for several years, following which the director of Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, Matt Reeves, was hired to direct the movie. Although there was no news as to why Ben Affleck was replaced with Matt Reeves, rumors stated that he declined to direct the project. However, the movie wasn't cancelled as Matt Reeves intended to direct the film, keeping Affleck as the character. Later, the film was rejected on the grounds that Matt couldn't connect with the script. Ben Affleck's Batman was deeply rooted in Zack Snyder's storyline, and with no chances of continuing with the Snyderverse, Ben Affleck's Batman had no future. Eventually, Matt Reeves ended up rewriting the entire script with a new world in mind. This resulted in Robert Pattinson taking up the role of Batman in a rebooted storyline. Greg Berlanti and Mark Guggenheim's The Flash movie. Before Flash made its way into CW's TV series, there were plans to make a Flash movie by Mark Guggenheim and Greg Berlanti. The two were then working on the 2011 Green Lantern movie and wanted to make one with Flash, which would have ended with Hal Jordan meeting him. The idea was to have a proper introduction for Flash and Green Lantern Hal Jordan in the cinematic universe. Guggenheim and Berlanti had almost completed the script for Flash, but after Green Lantern went flop, the studio decided to use Zack Snyder's Man of Steel as a new launchpad. Instead of making the Flash movie, Berlanti developed the Arrow TV series, while Guggenheim, although not directly, developed the Flash TV series.
I understand.
Batman vs. Superman, early 2000s. Although we'd received a Batman vs. Superman movie in 2016, it was expected to make its way long before. In early 2000, Warner Brothers were unsure of their future goals and proceeded to make the Batman vs. Superman movie. Although several Batman and Superman solo projects were in progress, the studio couldn't hold their excitement for having the two most iconic characters face each other on the big screen. They were happy with Andrew Kevin Walker's pitch for the movie, which would be showcasing a dark and aging Batman against a younger Superman. However, due to the pressure of completing their pending projects and the rising fan base for Nolan's Batman Begins, the studio shifted its interests and they ended up discarding the Batman vs. Superman movie. Superman Red Sun, live action. Created by author Mark Millar, Superman Red Sun was first introduced as a 3-issue format comic book miniseries showcasing a situation where Superman's spaceship from Krypton crash-landed in the Soviet Union. Superman would eventually be raised there and become a concerned threat for the United States. It was released under the Elseworld imprint. The storyline was promising. We've received a Superman Red Sun animated series, but according to sources, there was a chance of having a Red Sun live-action film as well. The very idea of having live-action characters for Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman from the Red Sun storyline was extremely exciting. And it was in 2017 when director Jordan Vogt-Roberts came up with an adaptation of Red Sun and pitched it to Warner Brothers. He proposed the movie to be an addition to the DC Extended Universe with a completely new set of actors. Even Mark Millar acknowledged the possibility of having the live-action film, but there was no concrete news supporting his words. Finally, during the Multiverse 101 panel, when the question came up for the possibilities of having the movie, Walter Hamada denied any such nearby projects. Green Lantern 2011 sequels. 2011's Green Lantern, featuring Ryan Reynolds as Hal Jordan, was originally made keeping in mind its sequel. It even had a post-credit scene giving us a brief idea of what was next in the story. The sequel would have showcased Hal emerging as an experienced Green Lantern and also Sinestro orchestrating his malicious plans, wielding the Yellow Lantern ring. However, it didn't turn out the way it was planned. Ryan Reynolds' Green Lantern didn't go well with the audience. It was a flop and underperformed miserably at the box office. According to critics, the movie mishandled the comic book hero and had poor script writing. Following this, Warner Brothers scrapped all plans of making a sequel. Ryan Reynolds also lacked enthusiasm for working in the movie sequel after its failure, and thus the project was finally closed. Batman Beyond, live action. Serving as a sequel to Batman the Animated Series and the new Batman Adventures, Batman Beyond eventually developed into a cult classic. It featured an old Bruce Wayne along with Terry McGinnis as the new young Caped Crusader. The studio decided to have a Batman Beyond live action film based on Frank Miller's Batman Year One, and by September 2000, they'd begun pre-production with Paul Dini, Neil Stephenson, and Boaz Yakin writing the script and Yakin directing it. Later, TV series creators Dini and Alan Burnett were hired to write the screenplay, and Clint Eastwood was thought to be playing the role of old Bruce Wayne. The first draft was produced by July 2001, but it was considered for a rewrite as Yakin had incorporated a nihilistic approach toward the story with a lot of violence and foul language. The studios instead wanted it to be a PG-13 film and focused on other iterations of Batman, which were also in development. According to sources, Yakin lost his interest and gave up the project, which led to all plans of making Batman Beyond getting scrapped. Hadley Davis's teenage Zatanna film. Zatanna in the DC universe was a powerful sorceress and had made several appearances both as a Justice League member and of her own. Back in 2005, the studio intended to bring this character into a live-action film suited to the action comedy genre. The plot of the film wasn't revealed, but according to sources, the movie would have showcased a teenage version of Zatanna. Hadley Davis, the screenwriter of Ice Princess, was approached by Warner Brothers to write the script for the film, but later, the studio got extremely involved with The Dark Knight, and the Zatanna film got postponed and eventually cancelled. Robert Smigol's Green Lantern. Although the first Green Lantern film was screened in 2011, the planning of its make can be traced back to at least 1997. Warner Brothers at first approached Kevin Smith to write the screenplay, who had then just completed writing the script for Superman Lives. Stating that there were other talented writers in the industry who should be given the opportunity, he declined. The studio then approached Quentin Tarantino, but later it was finally given to comedy writer Robert Smigol, as the script was already moved to an action comedy film. Robert Smigol's script would have initially showcased the traditional Green Lantern origin story with Green Lantern Abin Sur crash landing on Earth and the ring searching for its new wielder. But there, Hal Jordan wouldn't get the ring. Instead, the power ring would fly off to Atlanta and choose a slacker named Judd Plato, which Jack Black would have played. Judd, before getting his ring, was an employee at a furniture store and had a crush on his boss, Corin. He also had a nerdy friend named Seth. The film was completely based on humor, and Green Lantern was known as either the 8th, 10th, or 15th most popular superhero. After receiving the ring, Judd used it for his own fun until Seth guided him to become a superhero. Later, Sinestro would make his appearance and reveal that it was his idea to change Abin Sur's coordinates so that the ring would choose someone like Judd. After the script was leaked on June 20th, 2006, there was a lot of negative feedback from fans, and it was enough for Warner Brothers to scrap the project.
I'm not scared of them anymore! I'll kill them just like I'm going to kill you!
The Batman vs. Hush movie. In 2019, Batman Hush was released, which was an animated film loosely adapted from Jeff Loeb and Jim Lee's comic book story arc of the same name. However, it was a decade later that Batman vs. Hush was cancelled. After the success of the 2004 Batman animated series, 2 animated films were planned to be made. One was the Batman vs. Dracula, and the other was the Batman vs. Hush. Following the successful reception of the first movie, producer Jeff Matsuda was all set to begin working on the second movie, which would have been an adaptation of the Batman Hush story arc. The feature film would have showcased Hush as the primary villain along with minor role villains like Joker, Catwoman, Clayface, the Penguin, Mr. Freeze, and the Riddler. However, the film ended up being cancelled, and a similar film with several changes from the comic book story was released in 2019. The Trench was initially planned to be released as the Aquaman sequel, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, with Black Manta as the primary villain. James Wan was supposed to produce this film, which was planned to be a horror film based on the creatures of the Trench that were introduced in the Aquaman movie. Yahya Abdul-Mateen II, who had played Black Manta in 2018's Aquaman, would continue the role, and going by his previous performances in Candyman, The Trial of the Chicago 7, and Us, the movie would have been one of the studio's most prized assets, also elevating its status in the realm of superhero movies. However, after a prolonged silence in 2021, DC announced that the movie would be shelved and Aquaman's sequel would be enough to serve the necessity. Fortunately, Yahya Abdul-Mateen II will be appearing as Black Manta in Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. New Gods. Created by Jack Kirby, the New Gods in the DC Universe were fictional extraterrestrial beings residing in New Genesis and Apocalypse. In March 2008, Warner Brothers announced the making of a film titled New Gods, which would focus on characters like Mr. Miracle, Big Barda, and characters like Darkseid and Granny Goodness. Now, if you're familiar with Mr. Miracle's story, then you might be able to guess the plot of the film. Scott Free, aka Mr. Miracle, was the son of High Father Isaiah, and was sent to Apocalypse in exchange for Darkseid's son Orion as a symbol of truce between the two worlds. Although Granny Goodness tried every way to make Scott join Darkseid's forces, the latter escaped with the leader of the female Furies, Big Barda. Although the plot for the New Gods was never released, it would have revolved around the mentioned plot. Ava DuVernay was hired to direct the feature film along with comic book writer Tom King. It was planned to be a part of the DC Extended Universe and had the probability of becoming an epic science fiction movie. Unfortunately, in April 2021, the film was announced as cancelled after the release of Justice League's Snyder Cut. Ava DuVernay later revealed that the studio didn't want to move forward with a certain part of the comic world that was already in use in another film, specifically signifying the appearance of Darkseid in Snyder Cut's Justice League. Deadshot. After 2016 Suicide Squad, there were plans regarding a Deadshot solo film as a part of the DC Extended Universe. Despite receiving mixed reviews, Suicide Squad made $746 million at the box office, which made the studio believe in Will Smith to make a success out of a solo Deadshot movie. However, when Will Smith quoted $20 million as his pay for the role, the film had to be put on hold. Later, Will Smith was later asked to reappear in 2021's Suicide Squad, but he couldn't comply owing to schedule conflicts. The studio then had more than many reasons to scrap the idea of making a Deadshot movie. Will Smith's Deadshot was shown to be closely associated with Ben Affleck's Batman in the Suicide Squad film, and since Affleck's status in the future of DC movies was uncertain, calling off the movie was the best thing to do. Fleischer Studios Batman. Fleischer Studios was an American studio founded by the Fleischer brothers, Dave and Max Fleischer. In 1941, while their business was running low, the company signed a deal with National Comics for Superman animated short films. It was their only way to keep the company afloat. Surprisingly, each of the 17 short animated films was a huge success and brought fortunes to them. However, the brothers had no control over spending cash, and they ended up in the same place of crisis. Fleischer Studios was eventually sold to Paramount Studios, but according to sources and evidence, the Fleischer brothers wanted to go one more round with National Comics to make a Batman series. Michael Uslan, while working in National Comics, found documents in their office pertaining to Fleischer Studios' Batman. There, he found a letter from Fleischer Studios regarding the making of the Batman series. The letter from the Fleischer brothers stated that they look forward to making live black and white films rather than cartoons, which was an indication toward making a live-action film. Whatever it was, there were no chances of putting it to work after they sold their company. CBS's Mike Henry Batman. In 1964, CBS had thought of making a Saturday morning children's program with former Rams linebacker Mike Henry as Batman and Ed Graham as its producer. The actor even took publicity stills while dressed up as Batman, but unfortunately the program never happened. However, after remaining stagnant for a long time, the project was sold to NBC in 1965. Later, DC got back the TV rights for Batman, following which they made a deal with ABC to create the popular 1966 show. However, since then there have been no documents pertaining to the 1964 Batman pitch or even the publicity stills. Tim Burton's Batman continues. After directing 1989's Batman and 1992's Batman Returns, Tim Burton was set to direct the third installment. The two movies were a huge success, and Tim will always be remembered for adding a dark and serious tone to the character. However, the approach was more or less similar to the previous two installments, following which Tim Burton's third movie was discarded, and Joel Schumacher's Batman Forever was followed with. Superman 3, Supergirl. Superman 3, Supergirl was supposed to be the third installment from the Superman film series. Written by producer Ilya Salkind, the story was supposed to showcase Superman fighting against villains Brainiac and Mr. Mxyzptlk. The outline was also planned to showcase a romantic relationship between Superman and Supergirl, despite the two being known to be cousins in the comics. Christopher Reeve was supposed to continue his role as Superman. However, Warner Brothers rejected the script and moved forward with David and Leslie Newman's script for Superman 3. Superman Reborn. Following the success that hailed from the Death of Superman comic book series, the Warner Brothers made no delay in purchasing the film rights of Superman from the Salkinds. This was back in 1993, following which they hired producer John Peters to begin working on a new Superman film. Jonathan Lemkin was hired to write the script, which he completed by March 1995. According to him, the new Superman movie was titled Superman Reborn, and the plot revolved around Superman and his romantic struggles with Lois Lane, along with his battle with Doomsday. When Superman expressed his love for Lois, his life force jumped into hers, which eventually gave birth to his child. Superman died fighting Doomsday, and this new child grew up to become the new Superman, eventually saving the world. The script was widely different from what the studio was looking for, and it also bore a resemblance to the story of Batman Forever, because of which Warner Brothers cancelled it. However, there were yet attempts to make the movie happen. John Peters hired writer Gregory Poirier to rewrite the script, and he submitted his draft in December 1995. According to Poirier's story, Doomsday was created by Brainiac, who also infused his blood with kryptonite. Meanwhile, Superman, struggling in his romantic life with Lois, visited a psychiatrist, after which he was killed by Doomsday. Both Cadmus and Superman formed an alliance and defeated Doomsday. After his resurrection, Superman was powerless and he wore a suit to fight. His powers were shown to be a mental discipline called Fin-Ya, which returned during his fight and helped him take down Doomsday. Warner Brothers were not yet sure about the script and hired Kevin Smith to rewrite it. Kevin wasn't pleased with the entire idea as set by previous writers and declined the task, following which the project was finally cancelled. Untitled Batman Beyond: Return of the Joker sequel. Serving as a continuation to the Batman Beyond animated series, Batman Beyond: Return of the Joker was highly praised. Bruce Timm, the creator of the story, had plans of executing a sequel which would have showcased Selina Kyle as the mother of Terry McGinnis. Terry would later learn that he was a clone and Selina Kyle was the one who made him. Return of the Joker received great reviews and even a 100% score on Rotten Tomatoes, but failed to bring returns to Warner Brothers. Despite being everyone's favorite, the film wasn't considered successful. However, there were reasons behind the losses. Following the Columbine High School massacre, Joker's original murder scene, as shown in the flashback, had to be changed, and these last-minute edits delayed the release as well as increased their budget. Considering these expenditures, the film couldn't bring profit for the studio, and so the sequel was cancelled. Batman vs. Godzilla. As absurd as it may sound, it is true that there was once a movie in development that would have showcased Batman taking on Godzilla. Back in 1960, famous Japanese screenwriter Shinichi Sekizawa was the one who came up with the idea. It was before we got the iconic Adam West Batman television series, and Shinichi Sekizawa had just completed his work on films like King Kong vs. Godzilla, Mothra vs. Godzilla, and Ghidorah, the three-headed monster. He submitted his pitch in November 1965, which included several different Batman characters like Robin and Commissioner Gordon. Together, Batman and his associates would use Batman's uber-cool vehicles to battle and take down Godzilla. Sekizawa clearly indicated that he wanted to recreate a film similar to King Kong vs. Godzilla, which was then an international success. However, despite notable efforts, the film wasn't made as it left several things unclear for the studio to calibrate their future with the character. Sergeant Rock. For the ones who are unaware, Sergeant Franklin John Rock was a DC character created by Robert Kanaya and Joe Kubert. He made his first appearance in Our Army at War, issue 83, as a US Army officer during World War II. Back in late 1980s and early 1990s, there were plans of making a movie on Sergeant Rock, keeping Arnold Schwarzenegger in mind for the lead character. There were many screenplays written for the movie, with David Webb Peoples in 1987, Stephen E. D'Souza in 1988, John Milius in 1993, and Brian Helgeland in 1996. Finally, accepting John Cox's screenplay, producer Joel Silver attempted to make the movie, but Arnold was no longer attached to the project. Several years later, in 2007, David Gambino announced their return to the long-lost project. Bruce Willis was kept in mind for the role of Sergeant Rock, and the studio showcased notable enthusiasm for the film. However, in December 2008, Guy Ritchie stated that the project had been shelved owing to their involvement with Sherlock Holmes. In February 2010, he also spoke about the setting of the film, but since then there have been no further announcements. Batgirl, Year 1. The initiative to make an animated film based on Scott Beatty's 9-part comic book miniseries was made by Bruce Timm and Lauren Montgomery, who had then completed the Batman Year 1 animated series. However, DC later cancelled all plans of making it. There were several rumors associated with the movie's cancellation. According to Lauren Montgomery, at that time DC wasn't interested in any project without Batman or Superman. It was a $90 million project which was shelved at post-production. It was revealed that the film was shut down because it would have allowed tax write-downs on the project. The news of its cancellation wasn't received well amongst fans, as there was a lot of agitation on social media demanding its release. Tim Burton's Catwoman spin-off. While moving on forward with the Batman Forever project in June 1993, Warner Brothers had thought of making a Catwoman spin-off with Michelle Pfeiffer as the lead character. Michelle Pfeiffer had previously appeared as Catwoman in Batman Returns, and the new solo movie was set to bring light onto the character's solo ventures. Tim Burton, the director of Batman Returns, didn't have much interest in the film, and he was credited as the producer. However, later, Tim Burton returned as the director with producer Denise DeNovi and writer Daniel Waters. The film's make went into progress initially. However, eventually, Tim Burton in January 1994 became unsure of it, as he was also tasked with directing the fall of the House of Usher. Following this, the project went on hold and faced further delays after Michelle Pfeiffer, in an August 1995 interview, stated her scheduling conflicts and other responsibilities challenging her priorities. Later, Michelle Pfeiffer was replaced by Ashley Judd, but the venture was never completed. According to sources, the script couldn't get a proper green signal due to frequent profanity and nudity. It would not have worked as a family-friendly movie and wouldn't have been profitable. Untitled direct-to-video Catwoman film. Around 2003, Warner Brothers had thought of making a direct-to-video Catwoman film which would be released as a part of the 2004's Catwoman live-action movie. During this time, the studio was already working on Batman: Mystery of the Batwoman, and making the Catwoman film would have served its purpose. However, Warner Brothers changed their plans after Catwoman received negative reviews and cancelled the direct-to-video film. Direct-to-video Joker film. On October 17, 2008, DC Comics published an extremely disturbing yet brilliant graphic novel, The Joker, which was written by Brian Azzarello. The novel was well received and was marked as an achievement alongside Alan Moore's The Killing Joke. It belonged to a different world, and the novel was a narrative of one of Joker's henchmen. Following this, in an interview in 2016, Brian Azzarello stated that he would be making a direct-to-video film based on the Joker graphic novel. However, the raised high hopes went futile, as there was no such attempt in making the film later. If you read the novel, you could make an estimate of what the film could have become. Superman Lives. Inspired by the 1992 comic book The Death of Superman, Warner Brothers had planned to release Superman Lives in 1998. The film would have served as a reboot for Superman after the failure of Superman 4, The Quest for Peace. The screenplay for Superman Lives was written by Wesley Strick and Dan Gilroy, and it would have been directed by Tim Burton. According to sources, the movie would have showcased Brainiac sending Doomsday to kill Superman on Earth. Brainiac would have also been shown to be bonding himself with Lex Luthor, and becoming Lexiac. After Superman's death, Lexiac would be ruling Earth, which would soon be interrupted by a resurrected Superman. Oscar winner Nicolas Cage would have played Superman along with Kevin Spacey as Lex Luthor, and the movie's production began roughly around 1996 and 1997. However, owing to changing screenplay writers, the project got delayed and later cancelled as Warner Brothers couldn't take any financial risk after the poor reviews for Batman and Robin, 187, The Postman, Sphere, Fire Down Below, and Steel. Superman Flyby. Written by J.J. Abrams, Superman Flyby was a DC film that got cancelled in 2003. J.J. Abrams was quite excited about his script and wanted to direct the film. It was a completely different take on the canonical characters of Superman. The story would have showcased a new story for Superman's origin. The movie had Lex Luthor as a CIA agent who, toward the end, would reveal to possess magical powers that enabled him to fly. Just like the death of Superman, he would die here as well and later be resurrected after interacting with his father in Kryptonian heaven. According to sources, the movie was cancelled for 3 reasons. Firstly, the hassle associated with its production kept delaying the work. Second, the inflated budget, with the cost of making the film exceeding $200 million, was definitely a no for the production house. Lastly, it was believed that the film's tone would have been too dark for general audiences.
What I do best.
This'll be a short trip to Easy Town.
The Wachowskis' Plastic Man. Plastic Man is often not acknowledged, but is a very strong and powerful superhero, and it's quite unfortunate not to have received a live-action film on the same. The 2 Wachowski sisters, Lana and Lily Wachowski, had thought of making a live-action film on Plastic Man, with Keanu Reeves playing the titular character. The Wachowskis wrote the script based on the Plastic Man comic book series, and Warner Brothers planned to move forward with the project. However, for reasons unknown, the movie was never made. There were no efforts toward its development, which probably might have been difficult for the Wachowski sisters after the release of Jim Carrey's Mask, as the comic hero theme needed balance without resemblance. Later, Amanda Hidoko was hired to write the script for the film, but after a couple of years in silence, Hidoko was replaced by Kat Vasco. Kat Vasco's script for the movie centered around a female version of Plastic Man. Harley Quinn vs. the Joker. With filmmakers Glenn Ficarra and John Requa, a live-action film, Harley Quinn and Joker, was promised by the studio sometime around 2018-2019. The movie would have served as a spin-off to the 2016 film Suicide Squad, and would have been a part of the DC Extended Universe. At first, the movie's title was kept Mad Love, but later it was changed to Harley Quinn vs. the Joker. Jared Leto was kept in mind for Joker's role, while Margot Robbie would carry on with her role as Harley Quinn. According to sources, by 2018 the script was complete, and by February 2019, it was declared cancelled. According to sources, it was cancelled because Suicide Squad received negative reviews and also because the studios were keen on moving forward with Joaquin Phoenix's Joker. The plot would have showcased Harley kidnapping Dr. Phil owing to her relationship complications with the Joker. Teen Titans live-action film. Back in 2007, there was news about Warner Brothers working on a Teen Titan live-action film. Akiva Goldsman and Mark Verheiden were tasked to write the script for the movie, but later on September 11, 2014, Akiva was announced to be working on the Teen Titans TV series called Titans. It seemed like Goldsman changed his pitch from making the live-action movie to a TV series. Later, El Mayimbe on October 13, 2015's episode of Collider Heroes mentioned that Warner Brothers were developing a Teen Titan film with Cyborg and a group of female superheroes. Although no reasons were explained regarding its cancellation, according to sources, the team faced difficulties framing their ideas and choosing the Titan members. Blackbirds. Back in September 2014, a TNT live-action Teen Titan TV series was set into motion and was titled Blackbirds. Oscar winners Akiva Goldsman and Mark Hames were tasked with writing the script, and its filming was announced to start in mid-2015. The plot would have included Nightwing, Starfire, Raven, Hawk, and Dove, and Oracle. However, the production was delayed to October 2015, and later, in January 2016, the film was announced cancelled for unknown reasons.
I haven't been Mr. Morden since... No! Help me!
Doom Patrol film, 2006. Before making the Doom Patrol TV series, there were plans to make a Doom Patrol film. The Doom Patrol from the DC Comics was a team of young superheroes who still needed to gain control over their superpowers and abilities. Created by writers Arnold Drake and Bob Haney, along with artist Bruno Premiani, the Doom Patrol made its first appearance in My Greatest Adventure issue 80, published in June 1963, and since then they'd made numerous appearances with different incarnations of the members. In 2006, Warner Brothers thought of making a Doom Patrol film and hired Adam Turner to write its script. However, there was no follow-up, and later on February 15, 2019, we got the Doom Patrol TV series. According to sources, the film's plot was similar to that of the TV show. Gotham City Sirens. Gotham City Sirens was a comic book series that Paul Dini wrote. It referred to the 3 most popular badass female characters, namely Catwoman, Harley Quinn, and Poison Ivy. The first issue was released in June 2009 and served as a part of Batman Reborn. Later in 2016, Warner Brothers announced the making of a live-action film titled Gotham City Sirens, which would have served as a sequel to the Suicide Squad movie. Suicide Squad movie director David Ayer even tweeted that Black Mask would be appearing as the movie's villain. However, there was no progress on the project, and eventually the decision was made that a Harley Quinn film would best suit the continuation of the Suicide Squad, and Gotham City Sirens was cancelled.
Question. Would you die for me?
Jared Leto's Joker solo movie. Jared Leto's Joker created quite a bit of buzz upon his first appearance in 2016's Suicide Squad movie, after which there were plans to make a solo Joker movie with Jared Leto. There were reports about the film in 2018, but later DC moved forward with another Joker project that was directed by Todd Phillips with Joaquin Phoenix starring as Joker. There was no real reason as to why Warner Brothers altered their plans and made a Joker movie completely segregated from the DC extended universe. However, there were rumors that Warner Brothers was actually upset with Jared Leto. They weren't happy with Leto's efforts of playing his clown-like antics behind the scenes. It was reported that Leto, in hopes of imbibing the true persona of Joker, often sent disgusting gifts to his co-stars and behaved like a clown criminal in public. The cancellation hurt Leto quite badly, and he also tried creating problems for the 2019 Joker film. Green Lantern Corps. Plans of having a Green Lantern Corps movie were announced in 2016, even before the premiere of Batman vs. Superman. No creative team was attached to the movie, but according to sources, the film would have showcased both Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart. There were also plans to have Jon Stewart appear in the Justice League Zack Snyder cut, but was later removed. Although planned to be released in 2020, the film was later discarded and reworked into a TV series set for HBO Max. Cyborg solo movie. In 2014, WB and DC planned on making 10 new DC films as a part of the DC Extended Universe, of which there was a Cyborg solo movie as well. Ray Fisher was cast as Cyborg, and the movie was scheduled to be released on April 3, 2020, serving as a follow-up to the Justice League movie. Fisher, on numerous occasions, has stated his liking for Zack Snyder's direction, also mentioning his bad experience with Walter Hamada and Jeff Johns. He also declared that he wouldn't be working in the film if the two DC executives worked in the film as well. Following this, Hamada and Johns were replaced by James Gunn and Peter Safran. But after the failure of 2017's Justice League at the box office, the making of the Cyborg solo was put on hold. However, the film was later cancelled as Gunn and Safran looked forward to resetting the DC universe. Deathstroke solo movie. Back in 2017, director Gareth Evans was hired to direct a Deathstroke solo movie featuring Joe Manganiello as Deathstroke. Joe Manganiello had already made a brief appearance in Zack Snyder's Justice League and was also about to appear in a Ben Affleck Batman movie. However, when the studios decided to scrap the Batman movie with Ben Affleck, Joe's Deathstroke lacked relevance in the universe. Also, Warner Brothers looked forward to narrating a new story from the beginning, including reboots for iconic characters. Hence, all plans of making a $40 million budget film on Deathstroke was cancelled. In an interview, Joe revealed the movie's plot, which would involve Deathstroke's ex-wife Adeline Kane and their young children. The script would have brought Deathstroke's origin story into the limelight, showcasing his ties with the League of Shadows. Wintergreen and Talia al Ghul would have also made notable appearances. Wonder Twins. The Wonder Twins in the DC Comics were a twin brother-sister duo named Zan and Jaina, respectively. They belonged to the planet called Exor and possessed incredible shape-shifting abilities. Created by E. Nelson Bridwell and Ramona Fradon, the Wonder Twins made their first appearance in 2019's Wonder Twins Issue 1. The comic series appealed to the masses, and in February 2022, there were reports about Warner Brothers planning to make a movie based on them for HBO Max. Adam Stickiel, who had previously directed Black Adam, was approached to write the script for the Wonder Twins, and Riverdale star KJ Apa and 1883's Isabel May were cast as the lead characters. The film was set for production in July, but surprisingly, after a week of its announcement, the film was declared cancelled. There were explanations given for the movie, but later it was revealed that the budget crunch was one of the main reasons behind it. The film was estimated to be made on a budget of $75 million, which exceeded the studio's ability to bear it, especially after the merging of Warner Brothers and Discovery. Justice League Worlds Collide. The development of a direct-to-video film titled Justice League Worlds Collide was announced in 2004 by Bruce Timm. The movie was intended to stitch the first and second seasons of Justice League Unlimited. Dwayne McDuffie wrote the script, and it would have showcased the crime syndicate, who were the evil doppelgangers of the Justice League from an alternate reality, as primary villains. It would have also provided the explanation behind Wonder Woman getting her own invisible jet. However, later, after Andrea Romano had assembled the cast, the movie was called off for unknown reasons. The story story was later used for the Justice League Crisis on Two Earths, but since it was a non-DCAU film, all references to the continuity were changed. Even Green Lantern John Stewart, who was a part of the Justice League in Justice League Unlimited, was replaced by Hal Jordan in the movie. Joel Schumacher's Batman Unchained. During the making of 1997's Batman and Robin, Warner Brothers were so impressed with the film's raw footage that they immediately planned on making a new Batman movie which would serve as a sequel to Batman and Robin, titled Batman Unchained. Warner Brothers hired Joel Schumacher to direct the film and Akiva Goldsman to write the script. Both of them were associated with the previous Batman movies and were the best combination for Warner Brothers. However, Goldsman declined, following which Mark Protosevich was hired to write the script. Mark's script had a darker tone toward the character. According to his script, Scarecrow would have served as the primary villain. Joker would have also made his appearance, but as a part of Batman's hallucinations after Scarecrow infected him with his fear toxins. Harley Quinn would have been showcased as Joker's daughter, seeking ways to take revenge on Batman for her father's death. Together, Scarecrow and Harley would make Batman insane and confine him to Arkham Asylum. The film was planned to be released during mid-1999s, with Clooney, O'Donnell, and Silverstone continuing their roles as Batman, Robin, and Batgirl, respectively. However, when Batman and Robin received negative reviews, Warner Brothers became unsure about the film and it was later cancelled. Batman Assault on Arkham 2. We're all aware of the Batman Assault on Arkham direct-to-video animated film which was screened on 25th of July 2014. Directed by Jay Oliver and Ethan Spalding, the movie served as the 20th film of the DC Universe animated original movies and received positive reviews. Later in an interview in 2016, Jay Oliver revealed that they had plans on making a sequel to Batman Assault on Arkham. However, when Jay Oliver left Warner Brothers in 2017, all plans regarding making the sequel were discarded. The Sandman film. Pertaining to the DC universe, the Sandman was a legacy name that had been borne by several different characters. Initially, Roger Avery was hired to direct the movie, who in turn hired Ted Elliott and Terry Rossio to help him write the script. They started working in 1991, but the project was left untouched for several years. The creator of the 1989 Sandman series, Neil Gaiman, didn't like the script. He stated that it wasn't a great idea to give a proper explanation for a legacy name being passed on to numerous characters within one film. The movie was shelved for several years until 2013 when Goyer pitched a version of Sandman and Gaiman agreed to produce it. They planned to cast the Dark Knight Rises star Joseph Gordon-Levitt for the lead role, but later, when Levitt left the role owing to creative differences, the film went into a list of cancelled movies for Warner Brothers.
Let's go. Take them first. You can come back for me.
Batman Arkham. Following the success of the 1998 direct-to-video animated film Batman and Mr. Freeze Sub-Zero, Warner Brothers had plans to produce yet another direct-to-video animated film titled Batman Arkham, serving as the third installment. The animated film would have featured the cast from Batman the Animated Series. Warner Brothers then hired Boyd Kirkland to write and direct the film. According to sources, the film's plot would have showcased Batman and Robin confronting criminals who had just escaped from Arkham Asylum. The film was finally discarded as Warner Brothers became too busy making Batman Beyond: Return of the Joker.
Who invited you?
I was just hanging around.
I thought you were going to stay in the museum.
Robin, a spin-off to Batman and Robin. After the Batman and Robin film, Warner Brothers planned to make a solo film on Robin with actor Chris O'Donnell as the main character. Chris O'Donnell had previously appeared in Batman Forever and Batman and Robin, for which the studios had good hopes. Although it was a film about Robin, he would still appear as Batman's sidekick. However, Batman and Robin flopped and received extremely negative reviews from critics, following which all plans for the film's making were cancelled.
You're not just saving a life, you're saving a... Shut up, you're going to jail.
Superman Returns sequel. When Superman Returns was released, it received positive reviews from critics for its visual effects, story, and also Bryan Singer's direction. In February 2006, before the release of Superman Returns, Warner Brothers announced the theatrical release date for a Superman Returns sequel with Bryan Singer to continue his role as a director. However, later after the release of Superman Returns, Warner Brothers didn't like the movie, and despite being successful at the box office, the sequel was cancelled. According to Warner Brothers president Alan F. Horn, the studios were expecting the film to earn $500 million worldwide, and since it bagged $400 million, they considered it a failure. Also, there were hassles that the studio had to face with writers. It was during the period of the Writers Guild strike, which added to the troubles faced by the studios. Nightwing. The planning for the Nightwing live-action movie began after the success of Chris McKay's The Lego Batman movie in early 2017. The Lego Batman movie received love from DC fans all over the globe, and DC and Warner Brothers made no delay in signing McKay to write and direct a live-action movie for Nightwing. The plot centered around Dick Grayson's days at Bloodhaven as Nightwing. The film would have showcased Dick Grayson's struggles as a solo crime fighter, which happened after he stopped working as Robin for Batman. However, despite showing promise, the film's production was put on hold after Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice, and Suicide Squad of the DC Extended Universe failed to generate the expected revenue. Following this, Justice League also did poorly at the box office and probably shut down all plans for making Nightwing. No announcement was made for the movie's cancellation, but the silence around the project clearly indicated the movie was dropped off. Black Canary. Warner Brothers and DC announced the making of a standalone Black Canary film back in 2021. The film would have been a part of the DC Extended Universe, and it hired Lovecraft County's Misha Green to write the script. Not much was known about the plot, and it would have showcased Black Canary continuing her journey post the events of Birds of Prey. Journey Smollett-Bell would continue her role, and everything was set for production. According to sources, the film was in the works in June 2022, following which there were no discussions about the film. There were rumors that after the cancellation of HBO Max's Batgirl, the studio wasn't sure if the Black Canary movie could incur the losses faced by the comics. Black Canary was also cancelled by DC. Lobo. According to sources, there have been several attempts to bring Lobo into a live-action film. Although Lobo was created as a villain, he had been far more than that. He was a bounty hunter originating from the utopian planet of Zarnia and was known for his absurd body regeneration and raw speech. Lobo wasn't to be taken lightly, and he was an immensely powerful being. He'd even proved himself to be at par with Superman on numerous occasions. In 2002, Scott Leberek directed a film on Lobo, adapted from the Lobo paramilitary Christmas special. The film was made as a part of the American Film Institute's Director's Studies program, with Andrew Briniask portraying Lobo. It premiered at the AFI in May 2002 and was well received. Following this, Warner Brothers in September 2009 announced that they'd be looking forward to making a solo film on Lobo with Guy Ritchie as its director. Guy Ritchie later stopped working on the project as he became busy with the sequel to Sherlock Holmes, following which there were many directors associated with the project. At some point, Michael Bay was supposed to direct the movie. Lobo was a 7-foot-tall character and highly muscular, and Warner Brothers had their eyes on casting Dwayne Johnson for the role. However, since 2014, the project has been kept on hold and most likely been shelved along with other cancelled projects.
Sorry I'm late. But you tried changing clothes in a
Green Arrow, Escape from Supermax. As the name suggests, Green Arrow, Escape from Supermax was a solo movie on Green Arrow. David S. Goyer, along with Justin Marks, completed writing the script in 2008. According to the script, the film would have showcased Oliver Queen, aka the Green Arrow, being framed for crimes he didn't do and in prison. It would have been a prison break story where Green Arrow would encounter several supervillains before making it out of prison. It was yet unsure who would be the prime villain, but according to sources, Lex Luthor, Joker, and Riddler would have made brief appearances, along with some other minor villains. However, there's been no talk in the last decade about the film, and despite reports of the film being in progress, it can be assumed to have been cancelled. Swamp Thing Reboot, 2009. Known as an avatar of the green and protector of plant life, the Swamp Thing from the comics was created by Len Mine and Bernie Wrightson in 1972. His physiology was composed of sentient plant matter, and he could be considered as an extremely powerful entity in the DC universe. In 1982, Wes Craven wrote and directed a film on Swamp Thing which performed well in the box office, following which there was a sequel for the movie set in 1989. In 2009, Joel Silver announced his interest in rebooting Wes Craven's film, and Vincenzo Natali was hired to write the script in May 2012. According to sources, Vincenzo Natali delayed the script to pursue other projects, and since then, there has been no update of the film's making. Wonder Woman 2009 film, cancelled sequel. In 2009, a Wonder Woman animated film was released which was directed by Lauren Montgomery. Later, Bruce Timm wanted to make a sequel to this animation film, but it was cancelled owing to the poor sales of the first installment. Crisis on Infinite Earth film. The Warner Brothers Discovery merging resulted in the cancellation of several new DC projects and continuation. One such was Crisis on Infinite Earth. In 2020's online fan event, DC Fandom, Jim Lee explained their plans to move forward with a Crisis on Infinite Earth film. However, after the merging, all plans shifted and the studio changed its priorities. The DC universe had to be reset, and the studio laid its focus on rebooting previously established characters in the Snyderverse. Ben Affleck's Batman was cancelled, and so was the sequel sequel to showcase Henry Cavill as Superman. Owing to these, a film based on Crisis on Infinite Earth seemed vague and was hence scrapped off completely. James Tucker's untitled direct-to-video Justice League film, 2008. Although not much is known about the making of a direct-to-video Justice League film, sometime between 2008 and 2009, James Tucker was enthusiastic about making an animated Justice League film. However, reports were stating its advancement and it can now be considered as one of the scrap projects of the studio. Bruce Timm's 2010 Aquaman Animated film. Although there's been discussion regarding its cancellation back in 2010, Bruce Timm was enthusiastic about making an Aquaman animated film. Adam Green had even written the screenplay for the film, but the movie never got its release and can be considered cancelled. According to sources, the main reason behind its cancellation was the studio's marketing concerns. Early attempts at an Aquaman live-action film, 2003. Apparently, a production company called Sunrise Entertainment had plans to make an Aquaman live-action film in 2003 with Warner Brothers. They hired Ben Grant to write the screenplay. Later, Leonardo DiCaprio, representing his production company, Appian Way Productions, signed it to make the movie, but there were no results, leaving this project too in the list of cancelled movies. Sinestro Corps War animated film, 2007 to 2008. Based on the 2007-2008 Sinestro Corps War comics, DC's executive editor Dan Didio had plans to make an animated film of the same name. The comics showcased the war between the Green Lanterns and Sinestro's Yellow Lantern Corps. The story featured nearly all of Earth's Green Lanterns, including Hal Jordan, Kyle Rayner, John Stewart, and Guy Gardner, and the animated film would have also done the same. However, due to reasons unknown, there was no progress with the film and it later was considered as one of the cancelled projects of the studio. Guillermo del Toro's Dead Man film. Mexican filmmaker and author Guillermo del Toro had once shown interest in making a film on the DC character Dead Man. For the ones unaware, Dead Man was the ghost of a murdered circus acrobat named Boston Brand, who had the power to possess the living. His story revolved around his attempts to find his killer and also to help the innocents. According to a report by Variety, Gary Doberman was hired to work with Toro in making the Dead Man film. There were no further reports of any progress with the film and it can be marked cancelled. Watchmen Animated direct-to-video film, 2017. In April 2017, Warner Brothers had announced the making of an R-rated animated film on The Watchmen. According to sources, the movie would have been a faithful adaptation of the Watchmen graphic novel. The plot revolved around an alternate world where the US had won the Vietnam War with the aid of their superheroes. The film revolved around the reunited superheroes of reality, namely Rorschach, Night Owl, Silk Spectre, Dr. Manhattan, and Ozymandias, and their ways of understanding the true difference between good and evil. However, there was no progress with the script and it was shelved by the studios permanently. Static animated direct-to-video film, 2017. Created by Dwayne McDuffie, Derek T. Dingle, Dennis Cowan, and Michael Davis, Virgil Hawkins, aka The Static, was a teenage superhero in Dakota City with electromagnetic powers which he had received during the Big Bang. Back in August 2017, producer James Tucker was asked via Twitter if he had any plans of incorporating the character in the DC animated universe. He responded by saying there were plans, but later there were no discussions regarding it. Metal Men film, 2007. The Metal Men in the DC comics were a group of superheroes, each fused with a different metal. They were created by writer Robert Kanaya and artist Ross Andrew, and made their first appearance in Showcase issue 37. In 2007, there was an initiative by the studio to make a film on them, but there was a prolonged silence. Later in June 2022, Barry Sonnenfeld was approached by the studio to direct the movie, but it eventually went into limbo after that.
Where are they?
Choose between one life or the other. Your friend, the district attorney, or his brushing.
Christopher Nolan's original Dark Knight sequel. Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight is still considered one of the best superhero films ever made, and there were many questions regarding making the fourth movie as well. Following the post-credit scene of The Dark Knight Rises, we got to see Bruce Wayne alive, which paved the way for new adventures of the Caped Crusader of Gotham. Now, it was pretty evident that fans would demand a sequel to their favorite superhero movie series, but it couldn't be made owing to several reasons. Firstly, the contract with Nolan was for a trilogy, following which Nolan proceeded forward with his other projects. Also, Nolan believed in working on one project at a time, because of which there was no window for dedicating his time to a sequel. Now, it could have been postponed, but making a fourth movie would have spoiled his ending for the story arc. Christopher Nolan's ending emphasized that Bruce Wayne was free from his dual life, and conditioning Bruce Wayne to fight as Batman would have certainly undermined the conclusion of the trilogy. Owing to these reasons, there were no plans to make the sequel. Lord & Miller's DCEU Flash movie. There were several plans of developing solo character movies for the Justice League members. The same was for Flash, who by then had made cameos in Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice, and Suicide Squad. Phil Lord and Christopher Miller, who had previously worked together on 21 Jump Street and the Lego Movie, were approached to write the script for a new Flash movie featuring Ezra Miller as the Flash. Later, Seth Grahame-Smith was hired to direct the movie, and according to sources, it was supposed to be released a few months after the release of Justice League in 2017. Unfortunately, in 2016, Seth Grahame-Smith's plot revolved around the Flashpoint story, but later, due to creative differences, he dropped out as well. Rick Famuyiwa was hired next to write the script, and he completed his draft in August 2016. However, Warner Brothers considered his script too dark and then hired Joby Harold, who completed the script as per the studio's requirements. Together with John Francis Daly and Jonathan Goldstein, the script was completed and was supposed to be incorporated into the upcoming Flash movie. However, we will neither receive Lord & Miller's story or Rick Famuyiwa's story for Flash, as those two were scrapped out.
I understand.
So finally, we've come to the end of the long list of cancelled movies. Please feel free to mention any film that we've missed, and we hope that you've all enjoyed the content. Thank you, and have a good one. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one, and be safe. Thanks, everyone.